Right, good. So let's talk about this book, The Ordinances of Manu, right? Manu Smriti, right? The ordinances or the laws of Manu, right? One of the sages of the ancient past, right? To which certain things was laws was revealed and so on, right? So is a component of Vedic thought, right? Now this the book says that it seemed to have been compiled, right, the laws in this book, right, during the early centuries of the Christian era, right, and is a codification of the guiding principles for Hindus in all walks of lives and endeavors, right. um Right, so the institutes or the ordinances of Manu, the first lawgiver of India, are also the acknowledged sources of sacred law and are known as the Manu Smriti. Right, we'll go through some of these things. I haven't finished reading the book, but I prefer to share the information as I go along, right? Because as you all know, I'm on an authentic journey, right? And I prefer to just as I go along because there's so much, right? And there's so much things that actually in here that both help and hurt many people across the world, right? There are things in all these scriptures revealed or compiled, right? There are things in all scriptures revealed and compiled, right? That was the cause of a lot of great help for people and a lot of great hurt for people. And we're seeking to repair the situation, right? For the people who have been, including myself, right, who have been deeply hurt, right, by these religious scriptures, right, and for those who have been helped by them, right, including myself as well, right, we are seeking to just merge all these things together and come to some sort of agreement, right? Agreeing to disagree in certain ways, right? And kind of finding a middle ground and peace, right? With regard to all these religions that actually cause more harm than good, right? Um, right. So I will read these and we will talk about it, right? So we will go step by step because there's a lot. The great seers having approached Manu seated intent, having reverenced him, duly spoke this speech. Lord, deign to tell us truly in order the rules of the castes and of all the castes that arise between them. For thou, Lord, alone knowest the true sense. So you see, the evening language is biblical, right? Knows the true sense of the objects of this universal self-existent system, unattainable by simple reason, not to be reasoned out. He whose glory is unmeasured, being duly questioned by those magnanimous ones, having saluted all the seers, answered them, Here, this all was darkness, imperceptible, without definite qualities, undiscoverable, unknowable, as if wholly in sleep. Then the self existent Lord became manifest, making the undiscreet all discernible with his power, unobstructed by the chief elements and the like, removing the darkness. He who can be apprehended by the suprasensual, who is subtile, undiscreet, eternal, who consists of all the elements, incomprehensible, he verily became manifest of himself, wishing to produce different beings from his own body. He having desired first created water alone, in that he cast seed, that he became a golden egg like the splendor to a thousand-rayed sun, in that was born spontaneously Brahma, the grandparent of the worlds, right? So Brahma being considered, as the book says, the grandparent of the worlds, right? Meaning one of the first ancestors, if you want to call it that, or sage or rishi, right? Waters called Nura, for they are the offspring of Nara, and since they were his first abode, uh, he thence is called Narayana, right? That which is the undiscrete cause, eternal, which is and is not. It is not. From it, it issued that a male who is called in the world Brahma. That Lord, having dwelt in that egg for a year, spontaneously by his own meditation, split that egg in two, and with those And with those two shares, he formed the heaven and the earth. In the middle, the sky and the eight regions and the perpetual place of waters. From himself he created mind, which is and is not, and from mind egoism, the ruler, the Lord, and likewise the great self and all things with the three qualities and severally the five organs of sense, the apprehenders of sensible objects. He also having been made the subtile parts of those six of unmeasured brightness to enter into the elements of self, created all beings. Right, so we'll stop at 22, verse 22. This is considered lecture 1, by the way, right? As the subtile elements of the bodily forms this of this one depend on these six, so the wise call his form Karira. From it proceed the great elements with their action and mind. By its subtile parts is the perpetual creator of all forms. This non-eternal universe arises then from the eternal by means of the subtile elements or forms of those seven very glorious principles. Of these, then, that which succeeds partakes of the quality of that which goes before, such as each one is in order, and so with such qualities it is traditionally held to be endowed. He, in the beginning, from the words of the Vedas, appointed the names and functions of all beings severally and their several conditions, and the Lord created a subtile host of divine beings which have breath and are active, and of sadhyas and the eternal sacrifice. Right? So we will hold up there and move slowly with this because it can be a lot to digest. I'll also point out, I could also do that now to point out several things. Like the book, it has some aspects, right, that is similar to the Quran, which we have recited before, right? And I will also point out both the negatives and the positives as we go along in this book, right? And the aspects of this work, right? And these works that actually has the potential and have caused tremendous harm. Like I said, I'm not biased towards any religion, even though I was initiated into the Vedic religion. I do not say, hey, hold on to this religion as God or the ultimate truth or God itself, right? Because I know that every religion caused in many instances more harm than good, right? So this is what I am encouraging people to do as well as they go through your scripture. Stop overlooking the things that are wrong in your religion, right? You go through your religious text. Many times you have a tendency, hey, you just say, let me just hold on to this because this is the household I'm born in, or this is a religion I get baptized in, right? And you hold on to that religion like if it's gold, like if it's God, right? And this is what we're trying to get people to do, to say, hey, let me take my own religion, because religion is one of the things that the ultimate controllers of the world actually use to manipulate, right? So this is what we're encouraging people to do as people on the ground, right? Now, like I was explaining with the Quran, right? In order to actually move through these works, right, you need to have a certain what you're consuming and these things that makes it easier, right? Watch what you're touching, who you're touching, right? Kind of observe certain aspects of self-management, right, before you look to things, right? And all of that actually is part of things that hurt people with regard to religion as well, right? Which is something I am trying to break because I want people to be at a point to say, well, hey, regardless of who you are, right? Not that I'm taken away from the treasure or the gem or the purity of the books, but I want, what I really want is for people in whatever state of existence that they are in, right? Whatever state of existence you are in, right? That you could able to pick up this book and say, let me go through this book and let me see what makes sense and what doesn't make sense. Let me see what resonates, what doesn't resonate. Let me see how this could apply, how this can apply, right? That is my aim, and that is what I really want to do, because part of this, what you call purity, right, or purifying yourself, or having the need to purify yourself before touching these books, right? this is something that I want to help people to move away from, because my idea about this really is to say, hey, you pick up the book as you are, right? And you in turn, while you go through the book, right, the book would help you to purify yourself. Not in a purification sense on the whole, but to the extent that you need to be purified, right? So not in a whole purification sense, right? But to the extent, right? So the aim is not to be God, right? But to the extent that God can relate to you, right? In how you could continue reading the book and getting the extracting what you as a person need to extract from the book, right? So the book is not meant to apply to everybody in the same way, right? But the book is meant, right, in accordance, where the saying is that, hey, God is related personally to you, right? So these books are revelations, right? The Quran is a revelation, and Allah relates to you as you need to be related to, right? Same thing with this book, the Ordinances of Manu, right? That's a revelation, right? So it was a revelation and it was recompiled and so on. So but even in the recompilation of it, we know that, well, if you don't know, right, everything and every book and every piece of writing on this earth, it actually has a structure to it, right, and a purpose and a structure, right? So even in the recompilation, right, if you are guided towards the Quran, or if you are guided towards the Ordinances of Manu book, right, it is be for a reason, right, and it's be for a purpose, so God guide you there, right? So it's the way that it's structured, right? Even though, right, let us say that because earlier I pick it up, and when I see that, oh, well, it's a compilation during the Christian era and had British influence, right? The mere fact that it's written in English, right? We speak English, right? The mere fact that it's written in English, right, means that there's Christian influence, and this is a colonial country, right? So, well, was a colonial country, right? So the mere fact that we are here in Trinidad, right, mean that we are Christian influence from jump, right? So I pick back up the book because, hey, you know what? We can't get away from that influence, right? Regardless of what, right? The only way you could get away from that is if I pick up myself, go in the Middle East and live and learn Arabic and speak that language only or something, right? But you can't escape. We can't escape the Christian element or the English element, right? Even though we might not like it, and we might not like what has happened to us in this lifetime too, right? So pick back up the book and go through it, right? And the way that God operates, right, is that God will speak to something in you, right? So even if it have that element of saying, hey, I really don't want nothing to do with our religion, right? I really don't want nothing to do with our language, our religion, nothing, right? The way that the book is structured and the way that your experience has been structured in your life, right? The book, and God would use the book to speak to something in you, right? Knowing your character, knowing your personality, right? So this is how that is operate, right? So we would go through the book again, right? Like I say, with open mind, right? Not 100% condemning and not 100% praising, right? Because both are equally destructive, right? All praising to our religion is equally destructive as all condemning to our religion, right? So this is what the aim is to do. We go through this book, right? And just come to agree to disagree, and as it relates to you standpoint, right? So have a blessed day, everybody.